Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me wandering up to one of my usual spots with the boy. He's sniffing around down there as well, trying not to trip over these roots and rocks and the dog as he stops in front of me. Quite a nice day here now, quite a nice afternoon at least, a bit grim this morning. After the last video I did, which was better received than I expected, quite a lot of interest and not too many dislikes. There's always a few, I don't know, people were grumpy, miserable for whatever reason, but there's a few dislikes, but pretty positive on the most part, which was good. I did allude on that video to the fact that I would probably do a sort of a part two, a little follow-up, and I guess the title of this one, as I'm ducking under the trees, is something along the lines of why this particular Brit loves to direct belay where possible. So that's using the guide mode, that kind of thing. So what we'll do is I will wander up to the crag, set something up, because I like to sort of talk in context, as you know, and we shall have a chat about why. I'm back at the top of Lion Rock, but in a different spot to normal. There's a few other people around, so one, I wanted to stay out of their way. Two, it's still embarrassing talking to the camera in front of people that I don't know, so I've kept out of their way for both those reasons. Still got a good spot though. I've still got some cracks that I've managed to slot a couple of bits of gear into to talk about today's video, that, as I said as I was walking up, it's about why I like to direct belay if I can, okay? If I can. Firstly, there's the sort of logistics. Can I link the bits of kit in a nice easy way to set up a nice easy sort of guide mode style setup? Could be an Italian hitch as well though, whether that's a locking version or the normal version, but the gear does have to make it sort of lend itself to it really. But importantly, actually more than that, it's about the safety side of it as well. If you remember back to that previous video, I was in the system, so belaying off my rope loop or belay loop, whatever, but when my mate falls off and I'm belaying from there, I can brace and protect the gear a bit. So you've got to be just so confident that these bits of gear will happily take that fall without you being there as a shock absorber, okay? So there is that extra level of judgment. It might be you're climbing on bolts, right? And you know, we still check the bolts of course, but yeah, it's not quite the same in terms of scrutiny when we're looking at nuts and cams and all that stuff. I've only placed two bits in there. For this demonstration, it keeps things simple, and you know, they're good enough for this. However, if there's any doubt, place a third. Any doubt, place a fourth. Make sure you're like super happy. That just goes with any belay, doesn't it? We want every belay to be as solid as it possibly can be. I think it's just worth that extra % or whatever of thought when it comes to direct belaying as well, okay? That said, I've got my two bits in here. I've chucked a sling on there, and just a snap gate. There's other videos about when to use a snap gate versus a screw gate, stuff like that, but I'm happy with a snap gate there. I've clipped and flipped that carabiner. I can say there's videos for all these things, I've done so many now. I've put my sling in there, and I'm going to do a master point, and I'm going to do a figure of 8 in there. There's a couple of bonuses of that, right? One, it's a figure of 8, so it comes undone quite easily on a skinny sling. What else is there? I don't want to go too much into this because there's, I say, other videos on it. I could though do a clove hitch. This is really popular these days and I really like it. Clip into there, that becomes your master point, snug it up and everything. Yeah, real nice way of doing it. Just makes it a bit low in this case. So actually, I'd rather, in this case, do the figure of 8 because it takes up a bit of sling. So it's always giving thought. It's not just defaulting to using the clove hitch version or the lark's foot version or the figure of 8 version. Pick whichever's appropriate, which is why it's so important to have this massive tank of knowledge so you can do that. So I've gone with a figure of 8 for that reason. It keeps things a little bit higher, partly because it just feels right with where I am, but partly it keeps me in shot better as well. I'm going to put myself into there. Do it up, of course. My master point are these loops here. I'm going to also potentially be able to clip things into that carabiner. There's choices, there's choices, there's choices. Right, for the sake of this video though, I'm going to put them onto the shelf here. That's when I say them, I mean my imaginary climber. We get the belay plate facing forward. That's the way I prefer it. You can have it facing back, it works just fine. Obviously there's no real difference other than when you're managing seconds and stuff, but that's how I prefer it. I've shouted down safe at this point. I've taken my rope into my mate down there, my imaginary friend for the day. Gonna make sure I load this right. One, for safety of course, but two, I'll get called out for it otherwise when and rightly so. That's doing up the carabiner, same reason. One, it's just a really good habit to get into. Two, I'll get called out for it. Right, there we go, we're set up. I can shout down to my mate, climb when you're ready, and away I go, belaying them up. Why do I like this then? Well, I think it's pretty quick to set up. I think it looks really pretty simple as well. From a teaching point of view, there's some complexities in teaching the judgment of direct belaying versus indirect, but regardless, the actual sling setup, whatever you're going to do with it, I find that quite neat and tidy, and I find that people pick it up really quickly. So it's nice and clear. It's comfortable for me. I just find that being below this belay plate is kind of more comfortable, and it just feels more natural than the whole hand swapping stuff, which is fine, don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to do it that way where appropriate. It's second nature, but I do find this more comfortable. A big thing here though is when I can move around a little bit, so it's comfy in that way. I don't have to just stay sort of welded to this tight thing. I still want to stay snug on it though, that's important. It just means if my back is hurting a bit, I can just move around a little bit more easily. But here we go, when my mate does fall off down there, obviously I keep hold of this, but just for this demonstration I'm going to let go. All the weight goes onto these anchors. I'm still free as a free thing, okay? So should I need to do some problem solving, makes it more simple in that I can move around. Also makes things loads more simple in terms of escaping the system, because all I've got to do is get out of this basically. So there are some advantages that way. Personally, I feel if you've made the judgment that these are, you know, solid enough to take this kind of loading, then actually I think this adds another level of security. Let's put ourselves in that over dramatic situation of a bit of rockfall. It's hit me, even if I'm wearing a helmet like I should be. I let go, I'm unconscious. The rock goes down, it hits my mate as well, they let go. Well, this will still lock up, won't it? Yeah, even if I don't let go. So you've got that extra level of security, I think, and for me that's a really good thing. So a guide plate does that, a locking Italian hitch does that, a normal Italian hitch wouldn't. A gree might, there's all many different ways of doing these things, but I think you get an extra level of security from that. It also gives me the opportunity to be a bit more mellow. Of course I still manage this braking strand, I cannot let go of that, that's really flipping important, but it is just a bit easier to move around a little bit, clip the gear to the belay ready for my mate to pick up as we're swapping leads, take the camera out, take a shot, look at the guidebook, have a drink from my rucksack, all those sorts of things. So I do think it is a bit more user friendly, and I'm going to keep saying this, as long as the gear can take it, all right? There must be some downsides though, mustn't there? There's downsides to all these things. Well, the safety side is potentially one thing if these bits of gear can't take it. Secondly, well, for this setup, the gear has to be quite close together, doesn't it? How can we get around that? Well, I have got a 240 sling with me as well, so that could get wider bits of kit, keeping good angles. It could link 3 bits, potentially 4, but you're probably struggling a bit there. A cordlet, I go on about a cordlet a lot. You know, the other option is stripping this out. I'll try and do this as quick as I can. To use the rope for it, so we can still use the rope and direct belay. Is it common? Probably less common than these other methods, but it's a good way of doing it still. And it's worth knowing. So let's imagine these bits of gear are a bit wider apart and I just haven't got a long enough sling to make it work, but for whatever reason I'm desperate to guide mode belay. I'm just going to drop that down the floor for now. What I could do is, let's just clear it up from scratch to keep it nice and clear. I was going to take a shortcut then, but things like that often backfire, don't they? Let's pull a bit of slack through. I'm still on belay at this point. I can clip my first bit of gear, I can clip my second bit of gear, and I can then bring all these down and just do a massive knot here. I've got to encapsulate all these strands, so make sure these 2 strands particularly are coming out the back because it's easy to miss those ones. Basically, I'm counting myself as 1 thing, this is 2, that is 3 for the knot, so I should have 3 times 2 coming out the back, so 6 strands coming out the back. I can tie myself whatever knot you like, but it's probably going to be an overhand because it's quite manageable. There we go. Get it as neat as you can. It's hard to get them super neat because they're just big bulky knots, so I'm actually quite impressed with that one. Am I safe? Well, sort of. If I fall off, I am on 2 bits of kit, but what could we do? Well, we could put myself into there. I could clove hitch myself in as well. we've got 3 loops there. As long as something's clipped into all of them, I've got the options of those 3. I've got the options of the shelf there. There's loads of options, isn't there? Let's, just to keep it similar to the sling, we could put that up there, couldn't we? It's not really any different, other than I've used the rope rather than the slings, but I've ticking the same boxes, plus a bonus point of, you know, got some stretchy rope involved in the belay as well. That's a nice way of doing it. It does mean we're all attached a bit more to this kind of thing, so should we want to alternate the leads, that's a bit more problematic, isn't it? So to have a think about that if that's not making sense, but it makes that a bit more problematic. Like I said, I will go for a direct belay if I can, because I just find it beneficial in many ways, but only if it is safe to do so. I'm always going on about judgments in these videos and having all these different tactics that we can deploy in the right circumstance. So yes, I will use direct belaying when at all possible, but if it's not the right thing to do, I won't flip and do it, and I'm happy to justify it. I've got all the tools to make the right decision. I've got all that experience to draw upon. I hope that's a bit thought-provoking. There's obviously loads of other ways of setting this up. Even this bit, I could change loads of different things around. It wasn't really the video for that, but I hope, like I say, it has provoked some thought. Thanks for all the support for the channel, as always. Well over 10,000 subscribers now, which, as I say all the time, is flipping mind-blowing. Loads of support through the buy me a coffee and the t-shirts. There's some new t-shirts linked below as well. You know, find us on Insta, find us on Facebook, help us that way. It's massively appreciated. Click the like button, smash the subscribe button, massively appreciated as well. Fire away with those questions. As always, I shall answer as best I can. But as always, again, thanks very much for watching. More videos coming up very soon.